Hi, I'm Tim, your host for Watches Tonight. Guys, welcome back to the show. We are starting our rollout of Baselworld predictions. I'm your host. You guys know me. I know you. And all you guys who are getting up early or staying up late, thank you. Today, Baselworld predictions for the two biggest brands, Rolex and Patek, and the estranged, weird great uncle of Baselworld 2019, the Swatch Group. We're talking Omega. This plus viewer wrist shots on Watches Tonight. I want to quickly shout out that we're going to be doing an eBay auction event from the 31st through the 6th, so the 31st of March through April 6th. Mark your calendar. We're going to have some very special pieces curated and described by yours truly. It is going to be an unprecedented eBay and Watchbox event. It will be lots of fun with cool watches and unique opportunities. And I want to emphasize that there is no better place when the time comes to buy, trade, or sell watches, especially sell, than thewatchbox.com. If you're selling, we pay cash, we pay fast, we make it fun, and it's actually where I shop for my watches. Plus, guys, help me fill the gap. Tim_Mosso on Instagram. I'm going for 50K in 2K19. We're adding between 100 and 150 followers a day, and I am posting videos every 24 hours at minimum. So you guys help me make that mark for the year. My other video platform that keeps streaming when these lights go out. Viewer wrist shots. Okay, Abdul opens our night with a Rolex Datejust, and the backdrop of the Nile River in Cairo. Nicely composed. That's an excellent wrist shot. Nicholas gets our show on the road, quite literally, with Lexus and the Lexus of watches, Rolex. Simon H. swaps cars and bezels with his Coke bezel GMT at the wheel of his Tesla. And John H. joins us with a rare Damasco, a DS30 wrist shot from Georgia, USA. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital. Main feature, Baselworld predictions. The time is now, folks. We are jumping right into this, and we're going to go against the grain a little bit out of the gate and discuss brands behind their backs, because the Swatch Group will not be at Basel. Swatch Group CEO Nick Hayek announced last summer that the company's more than 12 consumer brands, they also have a lot of parts suppliers, but their consumer brands would withdraw from Baselworld 2019 with immediate effect. It's kind of like Elon Musk expressing that he's going to shut all of his stores without saying he's going to reopen them. So the bottom line is there was an immense amount of hysteria and drama surrounding this decision and no clear follow-up. We think, because they've told us, but there are no details, that Swatch will be staging a rival show in Zurich called Time to Move, and this will be during Baselworld, running concurrent. That's their save the date. But the thing is, I've spoke to major industry sources in just the last couple of days saying that, and they said details were scarce entering the last month prior to Swatch's Z-Day in Zurich. That said, for practical purposes, I'm going to lump these guys in with the Basel crowd. It's more fun, and I'm not convinced that much changes from a collector perspective. You're going to hear about the new watches, you're going to read about them on the internet, it's going to come out at the same time. The only difference is you won't have to be the journalist who drives from Basel to Zurich and back. So, Omega, the big one, the one we all care about because frankly, at one point, we've all owned or coveted an Omega watch. So let's start with this year, the anniversary. We mark 50 years and the anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing and the moment that immortalized Omega Speedmaster Professional forever. By the way, I'm going to jump into our chat box real quick. Shout out our guys, PY7, Matt Foster, Joe Differ, Nolan Reed, David B., Christopher G. from Portland, Oregon, O'Neill Miller from Chicago. I can see Aaron Edgerton joining us from Brisbane, Australia. True Live from Toronto, Andrew, Rick TikTok, North Star, Tim Masso's sunglasses. They've become sentient, apparently. David B., BKAR 421 from Iowa, and Hale Bop, a client and good friend Naresh Pape, joining us from the Great White North up in Canada. And finally, Lord with a Passport from Dublin. Guinness and Watches it is tonight. Thank you for staying up late with me. Okay, Omega, the Speedmaster 50th anniversary moon landing. We learned in January that Omega will reintroduce Caliber 321, the column wheel movement that flew with NASA's original 3 moon men back in July of 1969. What we don't know is the shape of the vessel, that is the watch, that will contain this thing. We do have some clues, however, based on previous Omega practice at Baselworld and details offered on the 321 reboot. We can make an educated guess. Let's start with this. First, First, Omega indicated that the new caliber 321 is going to be built by the same folks in the same shop that has traditionally made a few dozen Omega Central Tourbillon watches per year, and these are the guys who also made last year's $130,000 18-piece new old stock reissue first Omega chronograph. On that basis, actual 321 watches, at least initially, are going to be scarce and not mass-produced, so don't get your hopes up unless you're bringing cash. I would say Omega has a precedent for this, and this is where I suspect it's going to be a very expensive watch. It mints a limited number of platinum watches every year for Baselworld, and Omega, I should say, last year gave us these $70,000 to $80,000 Moonwatch Moonphase platinum dial, platinum case, platinum bracelet special editions, as well as a 70-piece 70th anniversary full platinum 2018 Omega Seamaster. This was the vintage reissue in full platinum, 70 pieces. So on that basis, we're talking dozens perhaps of the flagship caliber 321 model for this year at least, which is likely to be, in my opinion, an Apollo 11 replica of the 105012 reference that actually flew, landed, and walked on the moon. So I'm going to say, above all, Swatch will be looking to make a splash at its Rogue Watch show, and a monstrous limited edition is a fitting tactic. That's going to be the sex bomb of the year, but few will have the pleasure. I also predict, and this is more relevant for everyone else, yours truly, all you guys out there, friends of the Moonwatch, guys who aren't necessarily ready to drop 6 figures on a Speedmaster, there will be some kind of a mass-produced model. There will be something that will be based on the Apollo 11 reference. I wouldn't be shocked to see a 105012 with an 1861 standard Moonwatch caliber, and that priced between, I'd say, $6,500 and $7,500 with a monstrous boxed set. I also expect to see a Moonwatch 50th anniversary ceramic model, and this will be in the mold of last year's sensational Dark Side of the Moon Apollo 8. Remember that? It was a Moonwatch caliber with laser ablation, a spectacular skeleton dial, a unique caliber 1869 take on the Moonwatch caliber in the Dark Side of the Moon 44¼ case. I think we're going to see something like this for the moon landing this year. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a gray side adaptation. And given the anniversary of the moon landing happened in July, and summer is the doldrums for the watch industry, I fully expect to see in midsummer, on July 20th, at least some kind of anniversary product launched mid-year. So something will be held back until then. I'm not sure what. It might be this, but it could be anything. Okay, the Omega Seamaster, the other pillar of the brand. Expect a chronograph. This is easy. I would bet the house on this, and not just the doghouse. Last year's 2018 25th anniversary Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter was the hit of the show, and probably the most collector-relevant watch of the year when price, actual dealer availability, and feature for dollar was brought into the equation. This year, we can expect to see a Diver 300 meter chronograph. Follow in the lug steps of the redesigned Omega Dive watch. Friends, I can see we've got lots of folks joining in. I can see Pilot Style 123, Robert Dixon of Scotland, and we have Rick TikTok X33 he'd like to see. Consider it possible. But we're talking about the Seamaster for the moment. The last time we saw a new Diver 300 meter automatic, the three-hand with the date, it was 2012, and a new chronograph followed within 12 months. The line even spawned a GMT version, which was a chronograph GMT, quite a few features for the money, and later a 41mm version of the chronograph that was a wonderful alternative to the Tudor Black Bay chrono of 2017. So expect to see a new chrono in this line for 2018 with upgrades from the 2018 model, the three-hand. You're going to see things like a display case back on the standard model. You're going to see a new wave-style ceramic dial. You're going to see the new bracelet with the dive extension and the slider, and possibly a full ceramic case in the mold of this January's stealth launch, no-date Diver 300 meter ceramic titanium 43.5mm. That's a very cool watch, and you could almost have missed it if you blinked back in January. We might see something in this mold on the chronograph side. I can see John Galt saying that would be huge, referencing our president. And Alexis Reyes, if Rolex is the Lexus, which car brand is AP? I would have to say AP would be something along the lines of, let's see, who's still independent? How about Morgan? They're still family owned. That makes sense. Jason Main, my buddy in the chat box handling your questions about our inventory. We have another Omega anniversary. This year, 2019, marks the 20th anniversary of the Omega Coaxial. Sweet. That Platinum DeVille with salmon dial was part of a 100-piece limited series in 1999 to mark the arrival of the first caliber 2500. There was also a 1,000-piece series in yellow gold and a 1,000-piece series in rose gold. The George Daniels-inspired tangential escapement hamburger stack, as it appears if you look at it under a loupe, initially began as a wonder, became a punchline after early reliability struggles, born of an incorrect beat rate that Daniels had warned against, as well as the attempt to graft the coaxial onto ETA base calibers, and then it returned to form in 2007 with the arrival of the purpose-built caliber 8500, and it's been a big success since then. 20 years later, the coaxial escapement can honestly be said to have achieved all of the initial claims regarding accuracy, long-term stability, and reduced maintenance requirements, and on top of that, Omega backs the claim with a 5-year warranty, so proof, of course, is in the assurance. They put their money where their mouth is, and it is still the most sophisticated escapement you can purchase for under $40,000, and that's worth celebrating. I expect to see at some point this year, maybe not at Basel, but year-long, you'll see a celebration and a tribute to 20 years of Omega's most interesting engineering innovation. And I could see Edward Ledden saying AP is more like Ferrari, I feel. John Anderson saying maybe an Omega GMT. It's been a long time since, say, the Great White. And the Watch Lounge joining in. What's up, guys? What's up, Tim? Actually wearing my Alpine tonight. Welcome, Watch Lounge, and welcome, folks. Matt Foster, a fan of the DeVille Coaxial Run 1 salmon dial. You and me both. Let's talk about a smaller swatch brand that I love and probably one of the most relevant other than Longines and Omega, which is Blancpain. Something is brewing, and we know because on March 6th, Blancpain website launched all new with 2 model lines culled entirely. So a new website and 2 fewer model lines, and all of that just in the last couple of days. The decades-old and aesthetically jarring L Evolution line will be mourned by few. Whereas the Le Mans line, one of the last remaining ties to Blancpain's 1990s and early 2000s brand renaissance, is likely to be mourned by many. That titanium 40mm chrono was awesome. But I believe that this will be the year when we see a substantial change to the brand flagship 50 Fathoms. You can mark my words, we're going to see something big in the 50 Fathoms line this year. Launched in 2007, the current reference 5015 remains the strongest model and the most important line in the Blancpain catalog, but the time for refinements and maybe an all-new model has come. Recent declarations that Swatch will place silicone hairsprings in all of its basic watches leaves little doubt that flagship watches will be included too. And while you're making upgrades, how about wholesale changes? Because the well-received 2013 to present bathyscaphs, 43mm size, stripped-down look, various 40mm special editions or limited editions, and the success of display casebacks all together have illustrated that Blancpain is ripe for change, and the 50 Fathoms deserves to be the first recipient. I'll also mention that the 45mm 50 Fathoms is showing its age both in its 2000s oversized 45mm dimensions as well as its mechanical specification. The time has come to possibly get a little bit smaller and a bit more sophisticated. I believe that the Blancpain website reboot and the model line culling presage a major product launch to follow, and a new 50 Fathoms would certainly suit the bill, plus it's necessary in order to keep the line strong and counter Blancpain's loss of Baselworld exposure in 2019. Let's admit it, Omega will be fine this year. Omega is arguably bigger than Basel. It doesn't need the show to garner collector attention and dollars, but some of the struggling smaller Swatch brands really need the fireworks that come with the Basel show to be seen on an annual basis, and that's really their one moment in the spotlight. So Blancpain will need something sensational to make up for the lack of a Baselworld on their agenda this year, and the 50 Fathoms is just the ticket. Friends joining, I can see Sam Leno joining from London, England. Can we have a competition open to the rest of the world? We're not doing a watch giveaway this month, guys. I'm not going to spill the beans, but that's my tap ellipsis. To be continued. All right, and I could see PY7 asking for a non-limited 40mm 50 Fathoms. A 40mm 50 Fathom general production would be epic. Hold that thought. Patek Philippe. We'll address the blue bloods first before we talk about the red-blooded Rolex last. Okay, that full bracelet 5726-1A leads a long line of interesting and core Patek models being dropped this year. We already know that, it's confirmed. What will take their place? Let's start with the basics. A new manual wind chronograph. This top dog 5170P has been announced as a run-out model destined to end in 2019 when orders are fulfilled. It bowed in 2017 as the ultimate 5170, as well as the first 5170 to be offered in platinum. And with those baguette diamond indices, it was a legitimately special piece. With gradient dial, platinum case, it checks all the boxes. And this is the ultimate expression of a watch that launched way back in 2010 in yellow gold. So it's been on the market for a while, and now the end is near. But the 5170 represents a distinguished line that includes the late great 5070, and if we turn back the clock much further, the highly regarded 1463 water-resistant chrono, which is to say that the manual wind chronograph is a core offering across generations from Patek Philippe, and it's hard to imagine the line being vacated altogether. So, a new model is in order, and it's likely to launch in either yellow or rose gold per Patek convention, because they launch in the traditional golds first. I'm also predicting a colored gold Patek Philippe 5235 regulator. We are going to see a version of this watch in a different metal, or possibly something more intriguing. Let's start with the basics. The regulator has been with us since 2011. Deliveries started in 2013. It had a long gestation. Not easy to make that tech. Only available in one form, this one, since its inception, it's been announced as a run-out model, so we know it's ending. There's too much R&D intensive technology, the hairspring, the escapement, the Oscillomax assortment, all of it together, frankly, to end it with a single model. So I believe Patek's next move is going to take one of two forms. First scenario, Patek takes the easy route and releases a rose gold 5235R in the fashion that we saw first a white gold and then a rose gold Calatrava Pilot travel time. We finally saw a 5524R after the G. That would be simple and intuitive. Second scenario, and here's where things get really interesting. Patek does something wild and stuffs the regulator's caliber 31260 REG into an entirely different kind of watch, like a Calatrava Pilot or a Nautilus. Follow me here. With two versions of the Nautilus annual calendar, including that one right there, being phased out, this confirmed, I'm willing to take a huge leap of faith and suggest that something commensurate to the price, the stature, and the complication of these outgoing annual calendars might be waiting in the wings to supplant them. A loomed Nautilus regulator in stainless steel, full bracelet, 120 meters water resistant, would crash Patek's website and deadlock dealer wait lists until the middle of the next decade. Finally, that's just a theory, guys, but take a look at that experimental caliber 31260 REG from the regulator one more time. Hacking seconds, silicon tech, redesigned bridges, bigger movement architecture, it's broader for a larger display caseback. Patek's three main movements, the 215, the 240, and the 324, are based on architectures that variously date back 30, 40, even 50 years, and it would be appropriate for Patek to use the launch of a major new model or a broad set of product launches as an introductory series for the rollout of its regulator silicon tech across many model families. It's time to spread the wealth. We've witnessed, and this is going to be my coda to the verse, on the Gondolo front, years of atrophy in the Gondolo collection, which today contains only those two men's models down at the bottom right. With the announced discontinuation of all Gondolo 5124 references this year, there will be no more men's Gondolo watches in the collection. And this is a collection that's been around since 1993, harking back to the men's watches of the 1920s and 30s. So this is a core collection. To revive the Gondolos, I think Patek might offer bold design, new technology, and if we want to be provocative, for once launch a new Patek model line using steel or white metals as the initial model. A Gondolo with regulator tech and a steel case would be super, and finally inject some energy into this oft-forgotten model line. I can see Jeff Mendelson. Say hey, Mr. Tim. Welcome, Jeff. I can see Mark S. I can see Andrew McNeil joining from Red Bar, Glasgow, Edinburgh. Oh, I can see MB. I can see Watch Yourself. And we could see Joshua Polanski in the box with Richard Combs, Horology Homies, Alex Reyes, Simon Holt, all my old friends, and a couple of new ones. I can see Mike N, and I can see Cam Tibbetts, John H, and Andrew Steele, Brandon Richard Austin. Welcome, guys, to the chat box. And Abdul, a regular and a stalwart, joining me from... Are you still on vacation, or are you back in the Black Forest? Let's talk Rolex, because Abdul, you sent me a great Rolex wrist shot to lead off. I ask 4 questions when pondering Rolex rollouts. First, were any lines all new back in 2018? It makes sense to expand new lines. Second, which model lines are the oldest in the catalog? It makes sense to replace aging models. Third, are there any major anniversaries approaching? Rolex, like the rest of the industry, loves a round number. And fourth, are any current watches redundant? All of that said, let's start with discontinuation and replacements. My theories. Jumping straight in with the GMT BLNR. Much speculation, nothing confirmed, but it was launched back in 2013, and there's no need to drop this bestseller unless something is waiting to take its place. Last year's Red Blue marked the arrival of the next generation GMT that is destined to replace all of the watches based on the 2005 GMT. That was the previous and still the majority GMT platform in the catalog. And this includes everything, including the black and blue. They're all previous generation watches that are going to be phased out. I suspect Rolex will want to protect early adopters of that watch who braved hideous dealer wait lists as well as begging routines at their authorized. So there is likely to be no Oyster bracelet GMT Pepsi this year or in the foreseeable future. That's where I believe that a Coke bezel GMT will come into play. Discontinued since 2008, the bezel first surfaced in 1983 on the 16760, the first GMT-Master 2, and it's become a cult favorite alongside the older and more common Pepsi. So I believe steel with an Oyster bracelet and a Coke bezel would be the perfect complement to steel with a Jubilee bracelet and the Pepsi bezel. That protects everyone, including the outgoing Batman owners who don't want to see an outwardly identical of their watch reissued with a new platform and new movements, so everyone will be happy. Except, of course, the people on wait lists. Also expect, on the mass production side of things, these are the watches that are not waitlisted, but make the money and pay the bills. Full steel Datejusts with both conical and domed bezels. Last year, we witnessed the rollout of a new generation of Datejust, the first in over a decade. The last new generation was 2005. All new models were either precious metal or, like this one, a combination of steel and white gold, or rose gold, or yellow gold. You see the point. There were no full steel watches. Rolex model launches are the reverse of car launches, which is to say, consider Corvettes and Porsche 911s as an example. The initial excitement of a basic model, first you get the basic C6 Corvette, drives volume sales for a couple of years. And then as they get old and the early adopters start to dry up, costlier and more exotic variants, the GT2s, the GT3s, the 911Rs, and the ZR1s follow to keep the model family exciting and draw in those who perhaps need something a little bit more compelling, while a redesign of the basic car and the next basic generation is in progress. Well, Rolex, on the other hand, always launches the most expensive version of a new model, on the assumption that the new model excitement will allow them to sell however many $50,000 full white gold annual calendar GMT Skydwellers they can make. While the novelty remains strong, they can sell that watch at 50 grand. And later, as interest fades, Rolex launches base metal models like 2017's mostly stainless steel $14,400 Skydweller. So you can see you go from $50,000 to $14,400, and that in the course of 2012 to 2017. So that's how Rolex rollouts work. The cheapest model comes last. So for that reason, expect 36mm Datejusts in full steel for 2019, and hopefully Rolex gets playful here, and this marks the return of some of the most charismatic dials of past precedent, including the concentric dial, also known as the Gadron dial, including roulette dates, including the tuxedo dial, and the mighty turnograph, which has been sadly absent from the catalog, that one on my wrist, since about 2010-2011. Finally, there's the Rolex logjam. Too many watches of similar description and similar price. Rolex has a ton of 39 to 40 millimeter entry-level stainless steel time-only three-hand watches. Let's play a little bit of musical chairs with our countdown to extinction candidates. And yes, that is a Megadeth reference. Welcome, guys. I can see right here Darren Stenhouse joining, and I could see Mike Nickerson, a fan of the Coke. Let's start with our first candidate for the axe, the wacky 40 millimeter Milgauss at $8,200, the most expensive watch in this consideration. Now they're down to GV only. You're getting the green crystal and a black dial, or you're getting the crazy Z Blue. The Z Blue's been around since 2014, the basic model since 2007. So in terms of seniority, it's getting up there. It's ripe for replacement. It's priced high enough above the others, however, at $8,200. That's almost Submariner money, so it's probably safe. It's dissimilar to the other three. Now, the 39 millimeter Explorer. This is the 214570 at $6,550. It's the Rolex Explorer. It's not going anywhere. Next, the 39 millimeter Oyster Perpetual at $5,700. Each of the 5 sizes of this watch, it's important to mention, is considered unisex by Rolex, and selling all of these sizes successfully to both men and women drives volume, strengthens the catalog, and strengthens the case for keeping the 39 millimeter version in the catalog. Plus, they just added 2 new dials last year. At $5,700, this is also the point of entry to a classical sports-style steel Rolex, so it is safe on first. Finally, the 40 millimeter Air King. This watch was launched to borderline shock at Baselworld 2016. I was there. And the shock was on account of its design, which offers a quite faithful reproduction of the instruments inside the cockpit, we'll call it the cockpit, of the Bloodhound SSC supersonic car concept from the middle of this decade. At $6,200, this watch is stuck squarely between the Oyster Perpetual 39 and the Explorer, without offering the pedigree of the Explorer or the multiple dial color options of the Oyster Perpetual. I consider the Air King to be the last watch standing when the music stops for 2019. Boom, you're out. All right, one additional question that I ask when considering which Rolex products and which Rolex product plans might translate to a discontinuation or a new model launch. And I ask, what category does Rolex not serve? That is, what watch category has no Rolex equivalent? I highly doubt that a Rolex tourbillon or minute repeater is in the cards, but the company has shocked a few times in the last 15 years with the Cellini Moon Phase, which featured both a moon phase and enamel, the Yachtmaster 2 programmable countdown chronograph, and, of course, that 2012 annual calendar GMT Skydweller we just discussed. The Omega Planet Ocean comes to mind. The Planet Ocean chronograph seems like the kind of watch that Rolex would offer, but Rolex has no diving chronograph, and it hasn't produced a conventional mobile bezel chronograph since the 3346 Zerograph and the Centrograph. Yes, you can move the bezel on a Yachtmaster 2, but it's not a tool bezel. It's a setting instrument for the movement. So I would say a diving chronograph would fit the Rolex brand, fill an empty category, and help relieve dealer wait lists for the already backlogged Submariners and Sea Dwellers, so it serves 3 separate purposes. And on that last count, Rolex knows that it has a public relations problem with dealer wait lists, and it's working to fix that. Again, can't give away any privileged information, but this is a known in Geneva. Plus, I will mention we've been waiting 4 years to see a steel sports watch on a Rolex Oyster Flex bracelet strap, which is to say, given the absence of any major product anniversaries this year, there are no big round numbers to serve, the time is right to offer a major makeover to existing model families with the closest thing to a Rolex factory rubber strap. On an age basis, the Rolex Submariner and the Daytona are superannuated to an extent that even Rolex must have noticed. These are red-hot watches right now, and almost a license to print money if printing money were decoupled from the hazards of inflation. So Rolex has a hot hand. There's no need to change or fold. The current generation Submariner launched in 2008 as the white gold Smurf, and in 2010 in stainless steel as the Hulk. The current generation Daytona bowed back in 2000, when Paul Newman was not only still alive, but an active racing driver in the 24 Hours of Daytona. racing on the US endurance circuit. 75 was his age, 75 was the number on the car. Rolex knows it could build these watches unchanged for 10 more years, with each year's production pre-sold. And it did sell the steel 16610 Submariner for about 22 years. So there is a precedent here, but that's not always how Rolex works, and I wouldn't be shocked to see a redesign driven by both pride as a brand and integrity, understanding the need to keep refining. That's all I got for you. Viewer wrist shots. Paul S. and his Seiko SARB017 visited the world's most famous car in London, Bond's DB5. You guys know I'm always shopping for my next car and always undecided. Tell me in the chat box below what I should be looking for. Jay offers a handsomely composed Rolex Explorer 242mm polar dial with matching landscape. Brian B. kicks back with the Rolex Show Stealer of Baselworld 2018. The Pepsi Jubilee GMT. Meanwhile, Matt D steals this evening's show with a heart-stopping Jag XKE and Sea Dweller 4000. Guys, send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag at thewatchbox.com. Remember, we have a big eBay event coming up on the 31st through the 6th of April. Details to follow. Watch that space. And of course, follow me when these lights go out. The show starts. Tim_Mosso on Instagram. Thanks to you. Thanks to my crew. Let me know your Baselworld predictions in the comments below. Time out, Tim out, and thank you for logging on.